Yo, what's going on today, awesome fellas? Faye here again, and today we're trying to make Assetto Corsa look ridiculously good with stable frame rate on a low to medium spec PC. Now, if you watch my previous performance and graphics guides, those presets still work fine, but CSP 0.3 happened. New UI, new optimizations, experimental features, more graphics toys to play with, and also about 69 new ways to accidentally bully your frame rate. So for this video, I've been rebuilding and testing 4 brand new CSP presets, and the download links are waiting for you in the video description. And just as a quick disclaimer, every PC behaves differently. A setting that runs perfectly fine on my machine could make another PC start negotiating with the afterlife. So don't treat the presets as magical one-click solutions. Use them as a starting point, then tweak and experiment based on what we're about to cover in the next sections. I'm not some optimization wizard anyway. I mostly just test things until my GPU stops sounding financially stressed. So with that out of the way, let's head to the lab and start cooking. Speaking about performance in this game, no matter what kind of tweaking wizardry you've done inside the video settings or CSP, there are still a few major things that can absolutely kill your frame rate. And one of the biggest ones is your chosen car and track. A badly optimized car model or a track packed with heavy objects, high-res textures, and enough polygons to build a small country can hit performance surprisingly hard. Then there's your active PPF. Some filters look incredible, sure, but they also stack enough visual effects to make your GPU start sweating. Unless you're running a stronger PC, you might want to tone some of those effects down a bit. Python and Lua apps are another thing. A lot of them are genuinely useful, but some apps quietly chew through performance while sitting there pretending to behave. And don't forget background processes or having 50 browser tabs open while playing. Just turn off anything you don't actually need running in the background, unless you're doing laps while listening to a Sasha Grey live stream. I'll allow that. Now for the visual side of the game, my philosophy is pretty simple. Everything needs to be balanced. I don't need 600 FPS if the game ends up looking like a fully censored 90s jaff, and I also don't need hyper-realistic puddles if the game starts stuttering. To show you what I mean, here's the exact video settings I'm using right now. Almost everything is cranked up, post-processing effects are enabled, high-quality mirrors are turned on, and somehow the game is still running between 90 to over 120 FPS on a track filled with trees, shadows, and enough objects to emotionally damage weaker CPUs. Normally, settings like this alone are already enough to make a PC cry for help. But outside of using my CSP preset, all I really did was keep unnecessary applications from running in the background, including not using the browser during gameplay and recording. And that footage right there is using CSP Preset 1, which I specifically cooked for screenshots alongside a few tweaks inside the screenshots CSP settings. Extra FX is fully enabled here, including temporal anti-aliasing. And yeah, TAA is famous for making the game blurry enough to look like you forgot to clean your glasses. But if you're wondering why the footage still looks sharp, we'll get to that in a bit. Meanwhile, most of the heavier CSP effects are also turned on with my own balancing tweaks behind the scenes. And if you noticed, reflections in the normal video settings are actually set pretty low, but the game still has clean and sharp reflections because I let CSP Reflections FX override it using 1024 resolution instead. Now, the biggest reason this preset performs as well as it does comes from the upscaling settings inside graphics adjustments. Back in older CSP versions, we only had AMD FSR. Now, CSP gives us more options like DLSS, XESS, and others, so you can experiment and see which one works best for your own setup. We're going to head to the track and see how these settings actually impact the game in real time. But before that, head over to the drive settings and enable the keyboard shortcut for CSP settings, because we're about to do some live adjustments while driving. Alright, the game is loaded now with my Preset 1 active. Just a heads up, this preset leans more toward visuals and screenshots rather than pure competitive performance. And even with all of this going on, the game is still sitting around 100 to over 120 FPS, while my cheap screen recording software is also busy stealing a chunk of it in the background. Anyway, I'm gonna let the AI handle the driving while I bring up the CSP settings so we can adjust things live and immediately see how they affect both visuals and performance while the game is actually moving. Starting with one of the biggest visual hitters, Extra FX. The moment we disable the extension, you can immediately see the FPS jump up, but at the same time, the game loses a noticeable amount of visual quality. Turn it back on, then start enabling and disabling the individual options inside it one by one to see how they both impact visuals and performance. Now back to the upscaling settings inside graphics adjustments. The interesting thing here is when we disable it, visually the game doesn't really change that much, but the frame rate definitely drops, which is why upscaling plays a massive role in keeping this preset balanced. So while Extra FX is busy making the game prettier, the upscaling settings are basically recovering the FPS we sacrificed to the visual gods. You can choose the pre-made upscaling presets from best performance all the way up to quality depending on how much FPS you're willing to sacrifice for better image quality, or you can just manually adjust the pixel density yourself. By default, the 77% pixel density already gives you the old Ultra style settings from previous CSP versions. And of course, you can push it slightly higher if you want a cleaner image at the cost of some frame rate. But once you start going above 90%, I personally think it becomes pretty pointless. At that stage, it almost feels like running the game without optimized upscaling at all, except now you're also losing more FPS for barely any noticeable improvement. So my advice, don't go there. Now moving outside Extra FX, here are a few more settings worth experimenting with, depending on whether you want more visuals or more performance. First is real mirrors, which gives you proper real-time reflections for the mirrors. Looks great, but this thing can also punch your FPS in the throat depending on the car and track. Then there's track grass, replacing the track grass with a much better looking version. Different tracks also have different grass density, so the heavier the grass gets, the more work your GPU has to deal with. Inside Lighting FX, enabling dynamic shadows allows headlights to cast shadows from nearby objects at night, while high-quality headlight shadows makes them look even more realistic at the cost of extra performance. Looks fantastic though, but it doesn't come with a very expensive warning for nothing. And then there's Particles FX, which handles things like sparks, smoke, dust, flames, fireworks, and other effects. Surprisingly, most of these are relatively friendly on performance, which is why I only disable a few of them in my other presets to squeeze out some extra FPS. So take some time to experiment and fine-tune these settings yourself, because finding the right balance between visuals and performance is the whole point of this video. And speaking of balance, the other 3 presets I cooked lean more toward the performance side while still keeping the game looking crisp and clean. One of them is actually the preset I personally use for online track days and racing sessions with over 20 AI cars while still maintaining a stable frame rate. For now though, let me show you what this preset can really do when paired with my DV LIBRA PPF, because this thing makes taking good screenshots feel ridiculously easy. Time for some more tips to get the best out of your PC in both image quality and stability. First, know your system's limit. Don't push it too hard.
That's what she said.
Don't push it too hard trying to make the game look more realistic than your hardware can comfortably handle. And speaking about limits, I'd also recommend capping your frame rate in the video settings to match your monitor's refresh rate, so the FPS stays more stable instead of bouncing around like it just drank 3 cans of energy drink. Next, depending on your setup, you can disable some CSP options like Logitech LEDs, triple screen, or VR support, so the game isn't wasting resources loading features for hardware you don't even own. Other than the stuff we already covered, CSP optimization options have evolved over time, especially inside the CSP optimization tab. After testing different combinations myself, enabling the hyperthreading fix gave me a small performance improvement. Nothing dramatic, but it did help the CPU threads work a bit more efficiently instead of arguing with each other, so it's worth trying on your own setup too. Other improvements for both image quality and performance can also come from outside CSP itself, like tweaking anti-aliasing, texture filtering, and other settings through your GPU software, such as AMD Adrenalin or the NVIDIA control panel. Since every system performs differently, I can't really tell you the perfect setup, but here's how my RX 6700 XT is configured for this game inside AMD Adrenalin, with undervolt tuning enabled to keep the GPU running nice and cool, just like me. Last thing, if you want the same overall look as the footage in this video, you can grab the PPF I've been using here for free on my Patreon. It's still in an early build and actively being developed, with versions available for both Pure Gamma and LCS. Give the presets a try and let me know what you think in the comments. So that's it for today's video. Big shout out to my Patreon backers and my friends who helped test the presets along the way. Subscribe to the channel and join the Discord so you won't miss future updates, presets, mods, and other random things I end up cooking for this game. I'm Faye signing out. Keep your car cool, your visuals sharp, your game steady, and as always, stay awesome.